And welcome to you all. I've really been looking forward to giving this talk. You will not have heard anything like this. Hidden Bergerac. This is like when I gave my Randall and Hopkirk talk. Unique, one-off, multi-bucco research, and this is exactly the same. It's going to be a long one. This isn't for the faint-hearted. This isn't for those who can't concentrate for, scroll down, flick on this, flick up. No, this is in depth. This is a study. This is meaty. Here we go. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to have to refresh people's memories as well. Don't assume, I never do, that people know what you're talking about. So let us commence. Bergerac. Okay, I've made loads of notes. I'm going to be following my notes, otherwise I'll lose track. This book up here will be referred to later on in the talk, Bergerac's Jersey. That's the cover for the hardback. And this, the set of Bergerac DVDs. I'll also make reference to Midsummer Murders as well, because they both star John Nettles. So let us commence. So Bergerac, very quickly, take you over some straightforward facts, right? It was a British TV series set on a Channel island called Jersey, starring John Nettles as Sergeant Jim Bergerac of the Bureau des Étrangers, which means the Department for Non-Residents. It's a fictitious department. Now it ran from 1981 to 1991, and there was 81 episodes with 6 Christmas specials. 81 plus 6 equals 87. Keep that number in mind. It will crop up again and again and again. 81 episodes, 6 Christmas specials, 87. And it ran from 1981 to 1991, a decade. So, why a talk, bucco, on Bergerac? Very simply, it's all in the name. And it's that name that got me thinking, the name that compelled me to do this research. All original stuff, as I've said. No one has touched on this. And it isn't the name of Bergerac, though I will be looking at the name of Bergerac as well. So what is the name then, bucco? It's the name Hungerford. Hey, what? Hungerford. Hungerford. When I say the name Hungerford, well, first of all, do you know any Hungerfords? You may do. I don't, and I've asked various people, they don't either. Hungerford. Do you think, does it come to your remembrance, the Hungerford massacre? Oh. Well, I was convinced, as I thought on this, that the event of the Hungerford massacre took some place between the year 1981 and 1991. I became convinced of it. And I looked it up and I researched it. And lo and behold, it took place on the 19th of August, 1987. Yeah. Now, it's fascinating to think. I believe personally, this event wasn't a false flag. I think it were real. And I think What we're looking at in some of this taking place, what I'm sharing, is predictive programming. Began in 1981, the TV series. 1987 is the Hungerford massacre. Now there's some main characters in Bergerac. You've got John Nettles playing Sergeant Jim Bergerac. And when it starts up, the episode and the music, usually, well, yeah, it does. It will have, it will say John Nettles starring, and it will have Terence Alexander will play Charlie Hungerford. Now, Charlie Hungerford, he's a main character in this. He plays John Nettles' Bergerac's father-in-law. Now, he's got divorced through his alcoholism, but he comes back into the force and overcomes his alcoholism. Hungerford, Charlie Hungerford, is a wheeler dealer, a multimillionaire with a white Rolls Royce, big cigars, draped in jewellery and gold wrist watches and all this stuff. He's a likeable rogue. He's not into anything, how we could say, way beyond, the law, but he's shady at times with the people he mixes with. Yeah. And at the end of every episode, there is a picture, a different picture that will come up, and it says this. It brings up, I think this is like one of them. Jim Bergerac, John Nettles. No? As the names of the person. This is at the end of the episodes. But when it comes to Hungerford, it just says this. Hungerford. Terence Alexander. Hungerford. There's no Charlie Hungerford. Everyone else is Jim Bergerac, John Nettles, Jim. But not so with Charlie. Now, yeah, interesting point. So let's just fill you in on a few details on the actual event itself, just briefly to refresh our remembrances. As I've just said, the event took place 19th of August 1987. Michael Ryan, 27 years old, shot and killed 16 people, including a policeman, and seriously injured 15 others. The first person shot was a lady called Susan Godfrey just outside of Hungerford. And that happened in a wood. The rest were killed in Hungerford Central. The first victims were neighbours to Michael Ryan called Roland and Sheila Mason. Now, Mason is a reasonably common name to some extent. Are Freemasons involved? Well, we'll touch on Freemasonry later on. So let's just take a closer look a minute at Michael Ryan's full name. For he has a middle name, and it's Michael Robert Ryan. Robert Ryan. Robert Ryan. Robert Ryan. Does that name ring a bell to movie buffs? Yes, it does. Robert Ryan was an American movie star of the 1940s through to the 1970s. He often played in thrillers, film noir, usually the villain, though he could play a hero on occasion. But he was the sort of B-movie stalwart that helped make old Hollywood, what it became. He was born to play beautifully tortured, angry souls. He was always seething and ready to explode and boil over in his anger. If he was in a film, it wouldn't be boring. Yeah. And now he played in such films as Bad Day at Black Rock with Spencer Tracy, On Dangerous Ground, Day of the Outlaw, The Longest Day, Crossfire, Odds Against Tomorrow, Act of Violence, Hour of the Gun, The Setup. Now, Robert Ryan, you'll see where this is going in a minute. Robert Ryan married Jessica Cadwallader and they had 3 children. Now get this. Get this. They lived in the Dakota Apartments in Manhattan. Hey, what? What? The Dakota. What? Do you remember it? The Dakota at 72nd and Central, Park West. And not just any old apartment within that complex of expensive apartments. But he owned the very apartment that he later sublet and then sold to John Lennon and Yoko Ono. What? Absolutely. Absolutely. Where John Lennon was shot in the courtyard. Really? Yes. The very apartment. Robert Ryan. Now also that building, the Dakota, was used as the exterior for Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, for the exterior shots of the fictitious building that they called in the film the Bramford Building. And Rosemary's Baby was about a satanic cult operating within the Bramford or Dakota, whatever you want to call it. Now there's episodes on satanic stuff in both Bergerac, in an episode called What Dreams May Come. That was from 1985. And it starred Charles Gray, that actor that was in that famous film from 68. And of course, Rosemary's Baby was from 68 as well. The Devil Rides Out, where he played the chief satanic leader, Makota. And he's here again in Bergerac, playing another satanic figure. And as I said, in Midsummer Murders, it crops up as well. Now the results of the Hungerford massacre was a year later. Semi-automatic weapons were outlawed by the government. Britain's police were given new communication system with separate radio channels for major incidents, because this was out in the sticks. I don't know how far they had to come from to find this place. It was really quite distant, and the switchboard was jammed, as you can imagine, if people are being shot in the streets. It was bedlam. And the police 999 system was updated and fully modernised. Now, you may have noticed in recent days there has been a new series of Bergerac Rebooted. Now, this first aired on the 27th of Feb 2025. Damien Maloney plays Sergeant Jim Bergerac. But get this, a woman plays Charlie Hungerford. Now, years ago, I worked with a guy called Steph, and he had a little girl called Charlie. So ladies can be called Charlie. In the TV series, Terence Alexander played Charlie Hungerford as a man for 10 years. But in this new series, they've switched Charlie Hungerford into a woman. Now, had it began with a woman playing Charlie Hungerford, using the name Charlie, I wouldn't object in the slightest. But the fact you've had 10 years of a male character playing it is bizarre in the extreme. Ridiculous. But they do this sort of thing to confuse people. And they did it, I think, with Doctor Who. They've probably done it with other series. So the gender is switched. Now, who plays the role? It's a lady called Zoe Wanamaker. That's an interesting name to get your tongue round, isn't it? Zoe Wanamaker. Now, Zoe is a gender-neutral name of Greek origins meaning life. In the 3rd century, Alexandrian Jews translated the Hebrew name Eve to its Greek equivalent, Zoe. And as I've said, Terence Alexander, a good British character actor. You warm to his character even though he's a bit shady at times. He plays Charlie Hungerford in the original series. So looking into Zoe Wanamaker and her TV and film roles, I noticed she appears in one episode of Roald Dahl's Tales of the Unexpected, which ran from 1979 to 1988. In total, there was 112 episodes. And Zoe appeared in an episode called Skeleton in the Cupboard, and it was made in, anyone guessing the year? 1987. You got it. And it was released 18th of December 1987. Now, in this episode, I thought I'll watch this. And this episode appears in the full completed DVD set. If you buy a slimmer version of this episode don't crop up. You have to find the complete full amount of episodes, which I've got, and you will then have that episode with Zoe Wanamaker in it. Now, it's about a lady who comes to town to do some detective work, and businessman Robert Smythe has a secret to keep hidden. Begins with an aerial view of a market town, which could be anywhere at all in Britain, even Hungerford. And then you see a car park with businesses around it. No talking up to this point, and you see a Ford car close up, parked, not moving. Ford. It goes right up close. Ford. Before any conversation, Smythe and his work colleague is said. So that you see that before any talking. And Smythe is played by Charlie Dance. I wonder if they're taking us on a right dance here with all this. Anyway, then later, right, this villain near the seaside with this character of Zoe Wanamaker sitting on the bench with a few pigeons around, he walks up and begins a conversation. Now, so we have the Ford car, and I would ask the question, why do people eat? Why do the animals eat? Why are the pigeons eating? Because they're hungry. They have hunger. And if you put the two together, Ford, hunger, Hungerford. Well, it's there. You may say, oh, book up. No, I'm telling you, it's there. You've only got to look for yourself. I don't suffer with coinciditis. And I don't think many of my viewers do either. Yeah. So, let's think. Hungerford. So from the 19th of August 1987, which was the date of the Hungerford massacre, to the episode being shown on the 18th of December 1987 is 121 days. What is the 121st day of the year? It's May the 1st. May the 1st, Midsummer, which is a European festival of ancient origins, marking the beginning of summer, usually celebrated on May the 1st, around halfway between the hemisphere's spring equinox and the midsummer solstice. Now, Midsummer Murders as well. Now, John Nettles' other TV series. Look, how do you get great big episodes like this, a 10-year spell, and Midsummer Murders? It's even going on. Look, I'm speaking to you in 2026. It's in its 25th season. Now, John Nettles retired from Midsummer Murders in the 13th season. But it's going on. It's still going on with, I'll come to the character who plays him in a bit. But, so Midsummer, it's a Swedish word, as I've just said, for the celebration of the season of summer taking place on or near to the date of the summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, longest day of the year. Now, there's an episode in Midsummer Murders on the midsummer solstice in season 7 called The Fisher King. In the episode, someone says, midsummer solstice is drawing near, a moment of mystic power. We'll come back to some of the stuff that goes on. I think these two TV series in many ways are linked. They certainly have John Nettles playing a policeman in both series. It's all very interesting stuff. Now, I want to delve now into a few episodes. We'll be dipping into this, dipping into that, coming back, and then we'll be looking at some bits from his book on Jersey. Yeah, we're going to have a good dive into this. Clapping my hands with glee to get going on this. Now, there is a title. Yeah, looking at some of the titles of interest from various episodes, there is one called Clap Hands. I've just done it. Clap Hands, here comes Charlie. Is on Charlie Hungerford going into politics in the Jersey Parliament. And the clapping of hands, as we all remember, was part of the 2020 nonsense when it all began. The Rona Bologna, the codswallop palmed off on humanity in the biggest psychological psyop on the human race there's ever been. Now, in the episode, at a political rally, huge posters of Vote Hungerford, the candid candidate, are on display. Now, the words candid reminds me of the old TV series Candid Camera, where they played tricks on the general public. Smile, you're on candid camera was the catchphrase. And now, do you ever walk into a supermarket or a shopping mall or on the bus for that matter, and you've got a little poster there with an eye looking at you, smile, you're on CCTV. Yeah. And C&C, by the way, as I was reminded by my friend Phil, who I do talks with when we did various talks, 33 comes to 3-3. Also equals 3-3, ABC, the Masonic number. Yeah. More on the Masons in a bit. Now, when we look at season 5, which many consider to be the best of all the 9 seasons, season 5 was made in 1987. And by the way, we find a title, or a couple of them, that really do stand out, big time. One is called The Deadly Virus. And it's about animal rights protesters releasing from a lab monkeys with a deadly virus. We need to bring to our remembrance the great number of variants of the virus that were palmed off in the scamdemic and promoted by the governments of the world. A monkey variant was one of them. Remember? Well, this one, Omicron, moronic. Right, let's have a quick look. Masonry. Right. We now come to looking at an episode in Bergerac on Masonry. In fact, the whole subject of Masonry. A full episode appears in Bergerac and in John Nettles's other TV series, Midsummer Murders. The episode in Bergerac is called Poison. And in Midsummer Murders, it's called King's Crystal. Now, in Bergerac, obviously, John Nettles plays Sergeant Jim Bergerac. And in Midsummer Murders, as I said, he plays, Detective Chief Inspector Tom Barnaby. And that ran from 1997 to the present day, and I've said it's in its 25th season. Now, as I said, John Nettles retired from the role of of Tom Barnaby in the 13th season. And he was replaced, not as the same character, Detective Chief Inspector Tom Barnaby, but Detective Chief Inspector John Barnaby playing his cousin, who just happens to be another Chief Inspector. And this person is played by Neil Dudgeon, who began his acting in TV and onwards in the year, and you've guessed it correct, 1987. Now, there's no evidence in real life to suggest that John Nettles or anyone was a Freemason. Although there is some interesting, I did find this in the book of interest. On page 27, I just photocopied that one. This person, here you have 2 pictures together on page 27, okay? You've got Charlie Hungerford standing with an Arab and he's pointing. Although he's pointing up, the finger there is like this. And next to it, you've got Sean Arnold, who plays Jim Bergerac's superior, with his finger over his lips, which is the Masonic sign of shh, I'm not speaking on this. Shh. Right? Again, you can't prove anything, but I find that very interesting, both these pictures together. Yeah, very interesting. So, in season 5, as I've said, which incidentally was made in the year of the 87 Hungerford massacre, when it took place, there is an episode in Bergerac called Poison. What? Yeah. It opens up with a Masonic ceremony that results in death by poison. Quote from the film, "Is Charlie Hungerford a Mason?" says Bergerac. "Yes," is the reply. "A very senior one," replies the doctor, played by Alfred Burke. Do you remember Alfred Burke? From the Public Eye series, when he played private investigator Frank Marker. Plays it very good part in this one. And it's also interesting that there is even a Masonic funeral in it. In Midsummer Murders, in episode 57, in season 10, called King's Crystal, Detective Constable Ben Jones, who works with John Nettles, Detective Chief Inspector Tom Barnaby, is identified as a Freemason. He exchanges a Masonic handshake with Charles King. Charles King. Do that one backwards, isn't it? King Charles. Charles King. When they first meet, later when Jones returns to his office and hands Barnaby a file, he reports, "Charles King has a Mr. Clean, not even a speeding ticket." Barnaby, "And he's a Mason." Jones, "You spotted the handshake?" Barnaby, "Yes, I did." Jones, "I think I should tell you I once was a member of the Masons." Barnaby, "Were you?" Jones, "Yes, sir. Corston Lodge. Thought it might help with my promotion." Barnaby, "You never know. Policemen, Masons, there's always the perception of divided loyalties, isn't there? But your Masonic membership may come in useful in this one. If it takes us there, fine by me." Barnaby later in the episode goes on to say, "The Masons may not be a secret society, but they are certainly a society with secrets." And there's a clip in the episode of a train standing at the station with the numbers 58877. Now, this may be a stretch, but I certainly was looking at it closely. 5, maybe the 5th season of Bergerac. And then you've got 87, 2 8s, 2 7s. You've got 8 and a 7 and 8 and a 7. Again, that points to the year of the Hungerford massacre. Another clip in King's Crystal has a Mason explaining, and this is absolutely incredible, because I've been, from the start of my ongoing talks on conspiracy matters, I've pointed out the simple alphabet: A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, hidden ways of communication. And it actually, in this episode, highlights, he says, our lodge uses a simple code. The numbers are the letters of the alphabet. P is 16, L is 12, B is 2, etc. As I pointed out earlier, C and C, 3-3, A, B, C, 3-3, 33, Masonic. I've pointed this out many, many times. Fascinating. Interesting. Okay, so let's take another look at a name, Bergerac, a different name. So what do we know? Well, we know that the Channel Islands are near to France. So there's that French element about some of the Channel Islands. And Jersey's been one of the biggest. There is in France an actual town of Bergerac and an area of Bergerac. But a name that stands out is Cyrano de Bergerac, who was a French dramatist. He lived from 1619 to 1655, died at the age of 36. Three sixes, 666. There was a play by Edmond Rostand, Cyrano de Bergerac play, 1897. Right? And shuffle the numbers, and you have 1987. Oh, well done, Bucko. Yeah, not bad, that one. Now, he was the first writer to depict spaceflight by use of a vessel that has rockets attached. And he introduced moon men as an extraterrestrial race in his novels. Also, the model for the character, Roxanne, in Rostand's play, Cyrano de Bergerac, was Bergerac's cousin who lived with his sister, Catherine de Bergerac. And there's a strong evidence to suggest the theory that his death was a result of a botched assassination attempt. Now, there is a film, Roxanne, which is an American romantic comedy film starring Steve Martin, and it's a modern retelling of Edmond Rostand's play. And it was made in the year 1987. So, let's have a quick look at a few of these from the book. Now, this book on Jersey, he's relaying his time living there, bearing in mind they shot the episodes there. Obviously, things were done in a studio as well, but there was a huge amount of filming, and they lived there. He had a place there. His experience of different places and the different areas. It's all fascinating if you're thinking of going to Jersey. Certainly a lovely looking place. But he brings a few things out, and I'm going to go through them as quick as I can to bring them out. So bear with me on this. We'll begin in page 15. Smallish print, so I've got to have the old magnifying glass there. Okay, right, we'll whip through these as quick as I can. So he gives key dates in Jersey's history. He gives a few key dates, like death of St Hilaire, who brought Christianity to Jersey, 555, Jersey annexed to form part of Normandy in 931. And he whips through some of these. Queen Victoria visits Jersey, 1859. And then he says, tongue-in-cheek, 1981, Sergeant Bergerac lands in Jersey. And then he's got the last one, 1987. October storms cause massive damage to trees and houses. Now, I do find it incredible, bearing in mind that from 1981 to 1991, there's all them years. And yet, what do we hear of 1981? 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 88, 89, 90, 91. Scarcely anything. And you'll hear how much it crops up. Yeah. So, next one. Page 28. Right. Okay. Often people stagger that how can all these things happen on Jersey? You know, it's so ridiculous to believe all these things. Well, in some cases, yes, of course it's far-fetched. It's a TV series. However, this story happens in 1987. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but very briefly, there is a man called Nicholas Newell, aged 56, and his wife Elizabeth, aged 48. They live there, they're well off, they eat in nice restaurants, they have two sons that don't live with them, but they're living just, everything's fine, they go for a meal, this, that and the other, and then they disappear without a trace. Everything's left like the Mary Celeste, you know. And the police are called in just like Bergerac, and it looks like foul play. The bodies are never found. Straight out of, you could almost say straight out of Bergerac. page 35. Again, he says, there was and is no cause for alarm about the, whatever they were. Of late, there is, he's talking about airports, this and that, and this terrible fog that came down. And he mentions again 1987. Page 44. I'm bringing out a point. I'm making the point. This is cropping up again and again, and the best yet to come. You wait for this. Oh yeah. There was something interesting there about another episode. Yeah. The bloodline of a certain rich gentleman connected with high up elites living there. Page 59. Okay, so he talks about some vineyards on Jersey, planted by Robert Blaney. And he and his wife Anne settled here in 1968. They began planting vineyards. A couple of years later, now they have 5.5 acres under cultivation. In a good year, they can produce 15,000 bottles of soft, dry white wine, and they sell the lot. Nearly all of it in Jersey, small quantity. Exported to the mainland in a bad year, though, it's another story. The heavy rains and sunless weeks of 1987, mentioned again, brought them down to 2,000 bottles. We have the midsummer solstice, the midsummer day mentioned, a certain place, certain tradition thing that goes on. Yeah, that's mentioned, midsummer again. Page 88 and 89. Now, Jimmy Savile crops up. My ears always prick up when he's mentioned. Right, so let us see what he says here, right. So if you visit Garay and the castle, there are a number of excellent restaurants to try, including the Moorings, the Sea Scale and the Galley. According to friends, the last provides the best English breakfast in the island. All these restaurants overlook the harbour, and whenever I eat there, a picture of Jimmy Savile comes to mind. We were making a short film for the Jim'll Fix It programme, the climax of which took place at the end of the harbour wall. In the script, Bergerac has been alerted by a small girl that someone was impersonating Jimmy Savile and conning money from people. Bergerac and small girl then corner the felon Mickey Zane and his accomplice at edge of harbour wall, and small girl pushes both villains off the quayside into the water. Bergerac then makes unfortunate sexist remarks and he too is pushed into the water. When I volunteered for this watery punishment, the tide was well in. Because of delays during filming, by the time it came to shoot my scene, the tide was well out. Consequently, instead of a drop of about 6 feet, it had to fall a good deal further. I am not good about heights, and when we were ready to shoot, the only thing that kept me going was the greater fear of losing face in front of the BBC cameras crew and of course the young lady. The moment came, and with a small prayer and a deep breath, I plunged off the harbour wall backwards. I may say that the impact hurt a lot, though not nearly as much as the girl's remarks afterwards. I asked her if she enjoyed watching our programme, and she replied she did not watch it much, and anyway it was her mother who had told her to write to Jimmy Savile. What can you say? Then, on page 98 and 99. Yeah. So there's an incident, and this happens, a fortunately less tragic event, in March 1987. Right, again demonstrated forcefully the speed with which the elements can turn against the unwary in this part of the island. On Saturday afternoon, Miss Rowena Barthorpe, an experienced rider from St Martin, and her friend from Dinard, Diana Cumberledge, were out riding their two horses, Monty and Dangerman. Anyway, the tide came in, cut them off, and they almost drowned. They went up some steps of some monument of something and managed to cling on until, in the end, they were rescued. The names of the horses were called Dangerman and Monte. Now, Monte appears as a dog in Bad Tidings in Midsummer Murders. And Dangerman, well, that's the Patrick McGowan, the prisoner. Yeah, sorry about that. I just had to break off because it had stopped, it had cut out. So I'm continuing on, and we'll get there to the end of this by the grace of God. So I mentioned the names of the two horses, interesting names in themselves. 19, where are we now? 133. Yeah, that's it, 133. We have okay, he talks about the royalist and parliamentarian battles on Jersey, and he mentions a certain ingenious soldier loyal to, I think it was King Charles, Porter Hungerford. I thought that was interesting. We have a name of an actual person called Hungerford cropping up. And then he mentions a Christmas special of Bergerac in 1987. Yeah, so we're on the final stretch. Now, so another interesting one, an episode of some interest, is in Burnt. There's an episode, season 6, episode 4, called Burnt. Jim Bergerac is appointed to liaise with detective teams investigating crooked financier Sir Anthony Villiers, who has fled London and the press to arrive at his Jersey home. Villiers has something to hide, destroying his computer, accusing his aide of leaking information to the papers. Jim follows him to Sark, another Channel island, where he meets pig farmer Anne Granger, who proves to be an excellent ally in beating Villiers at his own game. At one point in the episode, Jim gets into a computer and finds where all the cash has gone. All the info comes up on the screen with dates, money in, money out, the year, and we see endless references to 1987. This is all on the computer screen. Check it out if you've got the actual episodes itself, and it's like this, look. 87, 87, 87, 87. Let's have a look. Down here, look. 87, 87, 87, 87, 87, 87, 87, 87. And here, 87, 87, 87, 87, 87, 87, 87. 87, 87, all the money, 87, 87, 87, 87. How many more times do you want? How many more times do you want? So, for me, in conclusion, this looks to me like predictive programming. Getting people used to a name that's appearing in their mind at 1987. Sorry, the Hungerford. And then the event happens. And even in the new series, they're talking about the name because the character of Charlie Hungerford is now a woman. Now, later on tonight, I'm going to have a French bottle of wine from my local Lidl. I came across this. Going to have a Chinese. I think I'll have beef, a green pepper and a black bean garlic sauce with some chips. I fancy that tonight. Jane's more healthy in her eating. I try as well, I do try. But look, I found this at Lidl. Right? And look at that, it's the first time I've ever seen Bergerac. Chateau, I can't even pronounce that. Laurier, oh, I don't know, Chateau something in France. But they're from the area of Bergerac. I thought, how apt. How apt. So, we've been many things here. We've been over many things. People can write them off as coincidences. And we've even looked at the new series. I don't think it's any good. It can never beat the old original ones. Zoe Wanamaker. So in conclusion, dear viewers, my dear friends, you can make of it what you wanna. That's funny. Write that down. Be seeing you. I'm back again. Just a quick one. I failed to mention that with regards to Bergerac, out of the 9 seasons, up to this point, I've only seen 6 of them. So there was still season 7, 8 and 9. And I'm sure there's so much stuff in there. And with regards to Midsummer Murders, only up to season 8. But I did view one of these and I found something quite amazing after I'd already filmed. That in Midsummer Murders, this is season 8, in an episode called Second Sight. Within the episode, Chief Inspector Tom Barnaby is, right at the end of the episode, he is saying to a particular person that turns out to be not a villain in the end, I've figured out where we met before. A homeless man that was battered to death in Mere Woods in the storm of 87. 1987. And within that same episode, earlier on, there was you know how you get on the radio, the old shipping weather forecast, German bite this and that, and they're giving the forecast. And Jersey is mentioned in this episode, same episode, called Second Sight. Jersey is mentioned, and also a picture of John Nettles as he was in Bergerac. as they're looking at these older pictures with his wife in the TV series. So you have both these incidents in Midsummer Murders. As I said earlier on, I'm convinced they're linked together. Also, an episode called The Straw Woman in season 7 of Midsummer Murders. It's a bit of a redo of The Wicker Man with Edward Woodward. Remember that one? And it's called The Straw Woman with similar, very similar situation of people being burnt. Okay, so it would be impossible really for me to view all these and to wait who knows how long before I could get round to viewing the remaining incidents to link it all together. But I thought I'd leave you with that, just so, okay, it's not totally complete. There's more to research. I'm only scratching the surface, but there we go. So once more, be seeing you.